The birth rate is absolutely collapsing. Let's get right into this. So the birth rate across Western economies is absolutely collapsing. It's collapsing in the US, it's collapsing in Canada, Australia, New Zealand. All the birth rates are heading down, and why is that? That's what we really need to talk about. So the number one thing and the number one reason behind this is the financialization of absolutely everything. The financialization of absolutely everything, the financialization of things like housing, has meant now that instead of people being able to buy a house for a normal amount of money, they are now taking on huge amounts of debt that they might not ever be able to pay back, and that debt is like a noose around their neck, and they just keep getting strangled and strangled and strangled. The debt really does explain a lot of what is happening with the birth rate, because if you think about it, debt is like a ball and chain. It is hard to get rid of. It's extremely heavy, and it is not a good thing for an economy if you've got lots of people in debt, as we've seen with prior bubbles that have collapsed, like the one in the US in 2008, like the one in Japan, and like more to come, like the one in Canada and many other countries that is right around the corner. Part of this reason for the birth rate collapsing is just simply because people have had enough. They are fed up and sick and tired, and they've come to the realization that, hey, we don't want to have kids into this world that we're in right now. And it is a very, very bad sign to have that happen to an economy, and it doesn't bode well. Different governments have decided to deal with this in different ways. If you look at the way Canada has tried to deal with this, they have just tried to import loads and loads of immigrants, even like myself, with the promise of a more prosperity and a better future here in Canada. And then when they land here, they are like, what the heck is going on? Everything is so expensive. I can barely afford to put food on the table. I'm never going to be able to afford a house. And then they end up realizing exactly why nobody wants kids right now in these countries. And this is a big, big issue, because for decades and decades, we've just been used to this growth that has been disinflationary. And now we've got the opposite of that, where you have labor shortages in certain sectors because many people have retired over the past couple of years. And they cannot replace those people. As they increase the amount of people that countries want to take in as immigrants, they have to drop the bar down. And when they drop the bar down on the skill level that's required, you end up with a surplus of people working certain low-skilled jobs, and then you end up with skills shortages at the other end of the spectrum. This is really an inflationary force that is at play and is going to be at play for decades to come because of the policy mismanagement that has happened by central planners and governments that have promised to take control and bring back housing prices to affordable levels and do many different things which would help the middle class. And instead, the wealth divide and the wealth gap has just got larger and larger and larger. And when wealth gaps just get expanded, that creates civil unrest in the society. People start to take it upon themselves and realize that, hey, this isn't fair. You've now got people driving around Lamborghinis past homeless people who can't even afford to get food. And that's just the reality of what I've seen here in even the city that I live in. It's just really happened because of all the government policies and because of all the short-term solutions that have come into play from the many crises that different countries have had in the past, including the one that we recently had in 2020. The government's answer to every single problem that has occurred for the past 2 decades is to just drop interest rates down to the floor to stimulate economic growth. But what that does is it means people get into debt up to their eyeballs, asset prices skyrocket, which introduces this wealth effect where basically people can then withdraw equity from these assets, go and buy other stuff. And it just means that the money supply just increases, and the money supply really turns into one thing, which is the credit supply, which I've said many, many times, that the money supply is really just a supply of credit. With everything that's happening, this is changing completely and shaking things up completely, and things are going to change, and people do not like change, and that is a massive, massive issue. But this will not come without pain. Civil unrest is rising right now as people get more and more angry about what has happened and unfolded just over the past 2 years. And I'm sure that right now there are people out there who are seriously angry. And if there is a policy mistake again, that will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. We are heading into uncharted waters in a way, because when you think about the past, when we've had similar situations, similar levels of inflation, we've never had a wealth gap that has been so large as we have right now. We've never had household debt levels as so high as they are right now. We've never had private businesses with so much debt as they have right now. So this is like a totally different situation, even though there is many, many similarities. It's like a situation which is even worse than in the 1970s. And at best, what is going to result from this is we enter a recession. But at the worst case scenario, we are going to enter a major depression and possible multiple lost decades that are going to come. And the thing is, a lot of people refer to what happened in Japan as the lost decade, and it's still happening right now in Japan today. So the thing is, that's not a lost decade. It's really just a depression that has never ended. And when you look at what happened after the response to 2008 and how the birth rate actually dropped from 2008 onwards, it shows you that the response to all these crises that happen are not impacting the public in a positive way, and they are not having positive impacts in the economy either. It's just increasing greed. It's just increasing the hoarding of assets, and that has major, major implications for an economy. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy this video right here, and you might enjoy this video that YouTube recommends for you right here. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.